East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. Thanks for being with us today. We are pleased to have Sheriff Tony Lyford with us of the Teton County, Idaho Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Lyford has been sheriff for going on your third term now, and he moved here to East Idaho from New York back in 2005. Obviously, 9/11 is tomorrow, and we wanted to have you come in and kind of give some perspective about that, as well as talk about some of the issues in Teton County and your experience as a law enforcement. So Sheriff, thank you for coming in. Let's start with 9/11. You were in New York City working as a police officer when that tragic event happened.
I was.
Walk us through what you were doing that day and how it all played out.
Let's see. Well, at the time I was working for the Chief of Patrol's office, his Investigations and Evaluations Unit. And I don't want to bore you with the hierarchy of the NYPD, but Chief of Patrol is one of what we call Super Chief. And there's no one, there's Chief Detectives, Chief Personnel, Chief Patrol, Chief of Internal Affairs, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the Chief of Department and then the Police Commissioner. So it's the upper, so our beepers, pagers, phones all went off. And we rallied down around West Street and I don't even remember, Canal maybe. It might have been farther south than that. And basically at the, for the first, I don't know, a couple of weeks, we were doing security. Whenever the chief went into the pit, we do security for him. And then we did security around the area. We did that until, I don't remember how long we were there, but at some point we took over security of bridges. I had the 59th Street Bridge with another counterpart sergeant. We did 12 hours on, off, and then we just relieved each other. And we had a contingent of guard troops who actually bivouacked under the bridge at the tents, the whole thing. But down at the trade centers, it's still very difficult to actually, it's still very surreal to me. But I do remember certain things about it. The public was phenomenal. When you left the pit area and you traveled north on the West Side Highway, people would be lined up with signs with what they had for you, socks, t-shirts, underwear, toothpaste, toothbrushes. Just, it was like driving through the center of a Kmart or something. I mean, everything.
And they were just giving it out.
They were just, they'd throw them into our cars just because they knew a lot of us hadn't been home in days. The other thing was some of the restaurants, and one that'll always hold a special place in my heart is Outback Steakhouse. They set up under the FDR Drive a little mini, almost like a pop-up restaurant for all the first responders. And they did steaks and everything that they do in the restaurant. I mean, you're standing outside under the FDR Drive, but it was, it was amazing. And a lot of places did that.
Can you believe it's been, 2001,
Yeah,
and we're
I know.
27, 16 years now.
I know, and I've been retired for, 15 now?
In some ways, does it feel like 16 years, or in most ways, does it feel like it was last week?
It's starting to feel ancient history now. And again, I don't know if I've ever completely come to terms with it. I know that I remember sitting at a counter near where I lived, that I would go and I knew everybody in there and I have breakfast. I was in uniform and it's still, you know, you have that white mist, the powder, whatever that asbestos and everything was on your pants and everything. I was just sitting there and some guy I was sitting at the counter and some guy just walked behind me, put his hand on my shoulder. That was it, and then kind of walked out, and I lost it, man. I mean, I didn't lose it, but I started to, you know, cry. It was the emotions were and they're still in there. I mean, I knew a couple of the guys who were killed when they collapsed. I worked for a lieutenant who, I mean, there's video of him from the building security in Lieutenant Cosgrove. He was in the lobby of, I forget which tower it was, 1 or 2. And you can see him there, and then they left, and then within, you know, minutes, his wife saw the video and said, "You're retiring." And he
Really?
did. Yeah, because he had like 38 years on the job, so he didn't need to be. He didn't need to be there. So.
Do you watch the specials? And
No.
You don't want to read about it. You don't want to watch it.
No. And I tell you, I'm a big First Amendment kind of guy. But if you start with any conspiracy, I'll just turn around and walk away. I don't need to hear it. It doesn't. You're never going to change my opinion about that. I think it's lunacy, and I have more faith in our country and government than I guess a lot of people do, that would think that people would do that to other people, their own, you know, people. I don't need to hear it, so I'll listen to most things, but that's not one of them.
Not one of them. Do you, so you worked there, I would imagine you worked weeks without a day off. I mean, was it nonstop patrolling the bridges?
Yeah, when we got moved a few weeks after, geez, I wish I could remember. I want to say sometime in mid-October we got moved to the bridges out of the pit area, the Trade Center area. It's funny, just a story. We were down there and they had lasers set up on the buildings surrounding where the towers used to be. I don't remember when those were built. I was a kid, but anyway. So if the building, because they were worried about other buildings collapsing, so if there was any shift, these alarms would go off. So I was in one of the porta potties, and all of a sudden the alarm goes off, and my CO at the time, my commanding officer, Donna Allen, she was a great boss, but she comes banging on the outhouse door and says, "Get the hell out of there, the place is coming down." So it didn't.
It didn't, yeah.
It didn't, but...
I'm sure everybody was on edge for quite a while there with anything like that.
Yeah, we were.
So you were born and raised in New York, got a job in New York. You respond to 9/11, and then you retired a few years after that. Was that because of 9/11, or you had planned?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'd had enough. 20 years in NYPD is enough. I could have stayed. I had my last assignment. I could have stayed there but why? And plus financially, it made sense to retire because of all the overtime and everything.
So you retire, and what makes you decide to move to Idaho? Had you been here before?
Well, I used to, when I got some tenure on the job and I could, get the vacations I wanted, I used to take June off, and I'd get on my motorcycle, and when you live back east, once you've done everything around you there, it's to get west of Mississippi, and it's to get out to the mountains, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho. So I'd been out here multiple times. The Grand Teton mountain range was always a draw, and it's spectacular. And after a few years of doing, jobs just to stay kind of busy, my friends are all moving out of the city, and it wasn't the same as being a 20-something-year-old and popping around to, it was, the energy of the city is so intense, and if you're not part of it anymore, like you're not part of the workforce, or you feel like the guy in the commercial is standing there and everything's going by you at light speed. And I said, you know what, I need a change.
Were you living in New York City?
Mm-hmm. I lived in Manhattan.
You lived in Manhattan, wow. So you decided to make a change and move to Idaho. We'll talk a little bit more about why you decided to run for sheriff in just a minute. But when you go back to New York now, and have you seen the new World Trade Tower?
No.
Do you go down there? I mean, do you want to see it? Do you go to the memorial, things like that?
I kind of avoid. I go back and visit because my mom and sisters are still back east, and they live out in the island. Long Island. Yeah. And which is the city, and then there's this strip that goes out where the Hamptons at Montauk Point, West Hampton, Southampton, so on and so forth. I avoid the city. I don't come to Idaho Falls because it's out of that aggressive, frenetic pace is definitely out of my system, and I get very. I just want to get back here. I really do. I don't think if someone gave me the opportunity to live back in the city, I don't think I'd do it. I'm very happy being here. I like the pace. It's one of the reasons I moved here. I wanted the complete juxtaposition of where I lived all my life, and I figured this was it.
I can't imagine anything more opposite. Maybe middle of Wyoming, but you're kind of near Wyoming, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about why you decided to run for sheriff after you had retired and moved to Driggs, and a few other things. So we'll be right back.
At the Bank of Commerce, we understand the hard work, determination, and sacrifice it takes to run a successful business. That's why we're here every step of the way to help make your dreams come true. The Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
Welcome back to East Idaho Newsmakers. We are pleased to have Sheriff Tony Lyford of the Teton Valley, Idaho Sheriff's Office with us today. Before the break, we talked about you working and living in New York your entire life. You retire back in 2005 and moved to Driggs.
No, I retired in July of '02.
Oh, of '02. Okay, so right after 9/11. And then 3 years later, you move here to East Idaho. You're happy in the Teton Valley area, I imagine. Had you planned to get involved in law enforcement when you moved back?
No, I did. I did some odd jobs just to stay busy. One of the things you have to realize when you retire is you're not on vacation every day for the rest of your life. It can become very expensive. So, to stay active, and plus, when I retired, I was 44 years old. So, you have to stay busy at 44 years old. You can't, So I had a CDL. I did some jobs after I retired, just you've always wanted to do since you were a kid, and one of them was drive over the road in a tractor-trailer truck. I did that for, 10 months or so. Got that out of my system. So I did, I had a CDL, so I drove for Start Bus, I drove for Barker Ewing in the summer, bringing the rafters down. I'm a pilot also. After I retired, I went to Fresno, California and rented an apartment there and got my pilot's license. So I worked at Jackson Hole Aviation. I decided to run because people asked me to. And I'm not I have nothing ill to say of the previous administration. It's just that apparently the people needed a change.
So you were asked to run, people approached you to run, and when you won, were you surprised? Did you think you'd take it?
Well, I at first, when Sheriff Kaufman resigned, he went to take the position chief deputy at Madison County. I was up to be appointed to serve out the remainder of his term, but there's a law that says you have to live in the county for a year. I hadn't lived in the county for a year, so I was eliminated. And then there was an election really quick, which I lost. And then the '08 election, I won that one, obviously.
When you went in, did you make a bunch of changes? Did you decide to shake things up? Or were they changes that needed to be made regardless?
Yeah, well, a lot of people left when I became sheriff-elect. No invitation needed. I think they saw the handwriting on the wall, or maybe they didn't, I don't know. But yeah, there was no infrastructure in the sheriff's office. Nothing was, and then listen, I'm not Teddy Roosevelt, police commissioner, great police commissioner of the NYPD, or Bill Bratton. But these are just standard procedures that need to be implemented in law enforcement agencies and offices.
So, we hear a lot about Teton Valley being the place where you have the long timers, the farmers, the people that have been there forever, and then the newcomers that move here from California or other states, and that there is this clash between the two. Have you witnessed that? Is there really a clash? Are things more smooth now than maybe a few years ago?
Well, there's certain clashes that are just based on, the old folks who are native to the area, generations, don't like to see people coming in and changing what has been their way of life for years. And some people come in and want to change it. And it's understandable that a lot of the folks who've lived here all their lives aren't receptive to that. But physical? No. But
no physical.
No physical stuff. But it's certainly apparent in elections and some of the rhetoric that gets thrown out on Facebook, and which I absolutely do not read, but I've heard.
What's the biggest challenge that you face, your department faces?
Well, hiring. It's when I applied the NYPD, I don't know, there were probably 15,000 people applied. I don't get that here. So we're a little remote for some people. We're a little expensive. We pay pretty well. But one of the issues is insurance. And that's something that I think we're hoping the county will look into a little bit more and try to come up with some solutions. That's really the biggest thing, is attracting people. And I tell you, it's not getting easy with some of the nonsense that's on the news. It's not a career that some people even look at anymore. Yeah. I wanted to be a cop since I can remember, since I was knee-high to whatever the saying is. And I didn't do it because I needed a job. I did it because that's what my calling was. I mean, they're out there, But a lot of people used to look at it as a pretty steady job, I don't know if I'd do it now. I mean, I might, I don't know.
Yeah. We had the new police chief from Idaho Falls, in the city of Idaho Falls, who just moved here from Alaska. And just last week, and I asked him the same. Well, we discussed that how hard it can be to attract good people, because it seems like any time you can find any sort of something on a police officer, justified or not, it's big news.
Right.
All over the place, all over the media.
As if we come from a different planet. Like we're not a section. Yeah, we're not a section of society.
Yeah.
That we represent. It's funny. It's okay to generalize about law enforcement, but not anybody else. But cops, yeah, you can say, well, we're an easy target. Yeah. No pun intended. Yeah. And but we're just human beings that come from the society that we live in. So we're really a reflection upon society. I mean, I think the best of society.
Well, you live next door to us. You go to the grocery stores we go to. I mean, it's not like you're a separate segment. What's next for you?
I don't know. I'll probably stop at Walmart or something.
Stop and do some shopping while you're down in Idaho Falls.
Right.
As far as, do you plan to run again? I mean, you've got
I don't know.
4 more years, 3.5 years.
I don't know. Be perfectly frank, I don't know. I mean, I'll be 60 in March. I want to do things that I can still do. Like ride my motorcycle and things like that. And I'm not a politician. I'm a cop all my adult life, and I take criticism personally, because I do it and my deputies do it because we want to serve, and my guys are all willing to put themselves in harm's way for people that they've never met, because that's their job. And I just don't know. I don't think I can do it much longer. I've been doing this for, combined 30 years. And it's not any easier. It's actually more difficult here than in New York, because New York was very anonymous. You didn't really know. I don't know how many dead bodies I've seen in my career. It didn't mean anything in New York, and you know these people. You know some of the people here, and it's difficult. I'm much more. As I get older, I guess it's harder to do it here because it's more personal than it was in New York. I did it in New York because that was my city, and I wanted to do it. Here, it's the same thing, though it's more. It's so many people. I mean, we arrest the same people over and over again. I mean, and they say, I voted for you. I said, I hope I can count on your vote the next time. So, yeah. So I don't know. I doubt it. I think my chief deputy, Bridger Smith, a great guy, and has the integrity and the willingness. He's young, but he'll, we got 3 years. Yeah. But I think if he's ready, I'll certainly, back him 100%.
Well, we appreciate you making that journey into the big city today. I know that you don't get down here often, but we know that there's a lot of people in East Idaho that were in New York or working in New York on 9/11, back when it happened. And so it was just that I happen to know that you were there, and that's why I wanted to have you and also discuss some issues in Teton County. Sheriff Tony Lyford, the sheriff of Teton County, the Teton County, Idaho Sheriff's Department, with us today on Newsmakers. Office, correct. The Teton County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for coming in here. Thank you for watching. Have a good week.
East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.